Welcome back to the final part of our needle felted fox tutorial. So this is really exciting. This is the very final part of the tutorial where we're going to be adding the fur to our foxtail, and I'm going to show you the technique of how to do that. We're going to be making him a little bow tie, and we're also going to be finishing off his arms. And that is the very first thing we're going to do because that's going to be the thing that's nice and quick. So I'm going to take some of my fox coloured wool bats. I'm going to take a strip and I'm going to split it in half. We don't want to use lots and lots of additional wool on his arm. We want to keep them quite slender still. So these pieces measure 5 inches by about ½ an inch. So I'm going to take my first piece, I'm going to place it past my arm, so it's kind of going onto his sort of almost chest area here. I'm going to take my fine twisted needles and I'm just going to felt this excess wool into the chest area of our fox. And I'm just going to flip it back and felt it in so we're not encroaching on this white area that we added yesterday. And once we've got it in place, we're going to pull it nice and taut. We're going to wrap it about halfway down our arm and then we're going to wrap it back up again, just to create a bit more bulk around his arm area. And once I've reached the end of the wool, I'm just going to hold it down with my finger and then I'm just going to tack those loose ends down where my finger isn't so I don't stab myself. And then I'm just going to felt it all down into place. Get it all nicely tucked in. And because we've pulled this really tightly, shouldn't really need to felt this. It's all about just anchoring down those loose ends to make sure it doesn't unravel. I'm just going to go round the back and focus on pushing it down into the rest of the body so we don't have any kind of line. So when we're pulling our arm around, it's not sort of, you haven't got any gaps showing where we've added that wool separately. So I'm using my needles to push that down into the rest of the fox's body. And then another area that you may forget about is under his arm as well. So make sure we felt under there too to get it all incorporated into our sculpture. Okay, so I'm just going to check that. That looks good. So that's the first arm. So let's do the same with the second arm. So I'll be back in a second once this is completed. Right, so I've finished wrapping my arm, and as you can see, I've wrapped the second arm in the same way, and I've ensured that it's all nicely incorporated and felted down under the arm and around the back as well, so we don't get any kind of weird divisions of wool. So the next thing we're going to do is add some fur to his tail to make him look super foxy. Now this can be quite a time-consuming process, but actually we're working with quite a small part of the fox, so don't worry too much, it won't take too long. And you don't have to do this either. You could just wrap the red wool around and then just add a section of white on the top, felt it down, and that would be completely fine. So you don't have to do it this way, but I do think it's a good opportunity for me to show you how you can add fur to sculptures so that then you can incorporate it into your sculptures when you go ahead and make other things in the future. So I've got my white Shetland wool here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tear off. Don't worry too much about the length, but width-wise, this is probably about 1.5 inches to 2 inches in thickness here, okay? And I'm just going to cut away these scraggly ends. So I've got a nice straight end, and then I'm going to cut roughly 2-inch pieces of our white Shetland wool bats. And I'm just going to layer them onto our felting mat here. Okay, and one last piece. There we go. So we've probably got more than we need here, but I like to always have more just in case we need to use more. I'm going to place my fox down towards the end of the mat, and we are going to be looking at adding some of these sections to the end of his tail. So I'm going to take one section that I've just cut. I'm actually going to split it. Foxy doesn't want to have fur added to his tail. He's running away. And I'm going to start probably about 1 centimetre down, okay? I'm going to hold it in place with my left finger, okay? And with my right hand, I'm going to take my medium twisted cross star needles in my needle felting pen, and I'm just going to felt this down. So it covers all the way down to the end of the wool. Get it nicely felted in. Okay, then I'm going to turn it round and I'm going to take that second piece that we had and I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side. This is the fiddly bit because we're working on ends. So I'm just holding it down with my thumb. I'm still using my right hand with the needles. Felt it all the way down to the end. And I'm just going to felt that top bit as well. Okay, so that's the first part. Then I'm going to take another section which I've split in half again, and I'm going to go slightly further up by about 1/2 centimetre. And where we had that join, where those two pieces have all joined together, I'm going to felt over that join. About 1/2 centimetre again. Then I'm going to spin it, and I'm going to put the same one on the opposite side. You want to make sure that your tail is pretty firm here, because the firmer the sculpture, the easier it is to get the wool to stay in, and the easier it is to attach the wool as well. Okay, so we've got those 4 pieces added. So I'm going to then take my third piece, split it in half, and we're going to do the same again. So over the crease of where we've just added, I'm going to take it again up about 1/2 centimetre, and I'm just going to felt that down. And then same on the other side. Just flip him over for a second. I'm just going to flip him over onto his back and just do the same thing here. I'm just holding him down so he can't move anywhere. I'm sorry, Foxy, if this is painful for you. Okay, and I actually think I'm going to go with a 4th piece as well. So I'm going to take my 4th piece, spin him onto his side, take it up again about 1/2 centimetre, and felt down 1/2 centimetre from the top of where we've added the wool downwards. And I like using the medium needles here because we're not looking for a smooth finish, we're adding fibre, we're adding fluff and fur. So I want to get a nice firm felt, and the twisted cross star needle works incredibly well for this. It actually only comes in one size, this needle. You can't get it in fine, but that's absolutely fine because it works so well at just felting everything down really quickly and giving you a nice firm felt. So we've got the end of our tail added. So what I want to do now is start adding some red wool to create that lovely bushy foxtail that we're after. So I'm going to get my fox coloured wool bats. Again, I'm going to take some sections, and I'm just going to, again, take my embroidery scissors and cut some sections off. And again, I'm cutting roughly 2 inches in length for these pieces. I'm just going to go and cut some more in my second piece. I'll be back in a second once they're all cut. Right, so I've got my pieces of wool cut. We will definitely need more than this, but that's enough for the time being. So what we're going to do is we're just going to progress on from where we were adding the white to our tail a moment ago. So we're going to start in the same area that we were a moment ago. We're going to go about 1/2 centimetre up. Okay, so I'm going to keep the width this time, and I'm just going to hold it again down with my forefinger, and I'm just going to felt 1/2 centimetre down into the wool bats that we added at the beginning of the tutorial. Spin it round so I can get that end down. And get it nicely and firmly felted in. Then he's going to go on his back. I'll do the same on the other side. It doesn't matter if those 2 pieces overlap either. There we go. So first piece added. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a second piece. So I'm going to put him on his side. I'm going to go over that gap where those 2 pieces of wool join where we just added. And again, I'm going to felt down 1/2 centimetre. Now you could use, if you wanted to, a roving wool for this, 100%, and it would look great. It would give much more of a hair-like look, but I want to go for more of a fluffy, wild look with this. I don't want to be too neat and precise because I like the fact that, you know, foxes live in the woods and they are wild and feral and they're getting in all the shrubbery and stealing chickens and all the rest of it. So I'm keeping him wild by using the bats. Okay. And then I'm just going to take another piece and then place that round the other side. So you're taking these pieces halfway around the tail. So it's 2 pieces per kind of circumference, if you like. And just gradually working your way up 1/2 centimetre each time. So I'm going to keep adding my wool and I will come back to you once all of the wool is added to his tail. Right, so I've added the wool to my fox's tail and I've continued to do the process that I showed you earlier on. So I've taken it all the way up to the very top of where his tail starts there. But as you can see, he's looking a bit disproportionate at the moment. This tail's looking far too fluffy. So what we want to do is we want to kind of brush it out a bit and we want to trim it quite significantly to get it looking a bit more in proportion with the rest of his body. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my eyebrow comb. This is just a really cheap eyebrow comb that I bought from Amazon, so nothing special, which is plastic. And I'm just going to very lightly, I'm just going to brush in the direction that the fibres are going, so backwards towards the end of his tail. I'm going to brush and just get everything a bit more integrated into each other. So all of these patches of wool that we've added are all blending together. And you'll probably find that you do get some shedding because it's a short fur wool, so some of the wool won't have caught onto the tail, but don't worry about that, that's fine, because we don't want all of this anyway. It's almost like, you know, when you've got a dog or a cat and you do that, use that de-shedding brush that you get and clumps of hair come out. It's a bit like that process. But don't panic, okay? You're not going to pull out all of your fur, but just go in really gently and go in the direction that the fur is that we've added. There we are. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim the tail that we've made at the end. I'm just going to trim it towards a bit of a point. There we go, like that. I'm just going to brush our fur upwards a bit. And then I'm just going to take my embroidery scissors and I'm just going to start trimming out the length. And just try and keep it as even as possible. So turn your tail so you're kind of cutting the same amount. Do it gradually. So a bit like if you were cutting your own fringe or something like that, you wouldn't do it all in one go. You do it gradually and build up to it. So that's what we're doing here. And what you'll find is you'll get a lovely texture to your fur. So I'm going to keep cutting gradually, pushing the fur so it's kind of coming outwards. And also what we want to do is we want to shape this as well. So we want this part to be narrower than this part. So I'm going to focus on just trimming a bit more of our fur towards the end of the tail. And then letting it be a bit longer as we go upwards towards the body of our fox. I'm going to trim some more underneath because that is quite thick at the moment. I'm just taking little snips. Checking it. Okay, it's looking good. It's still looking a bit big. I think I want to lose a little bit more of the height of the fur, so we're not quite as dense. Okay, so I've trimmed off quite a large proportion of that fur that we added, and I'm just going to go back in again with my little eyebrow brush, and again just give it a bit of a brush just to blend everything in nicely with each other. Just turn him round. And it just helps all that fur to integrate in with each other. Remember, this isn't a toy, so you would never give this to a baby or anything like that, okay? And there we go, we have one beautifully bushy tail, which is also posable, which is great. And that's the nice thing with using floristry wire in these sculptures. You can pose them and position them as you want to have them. So, you know, you can have his arms up here, hand on his hip, you can move his tail around here. So it's a really lovely tactile sculpture, but as I said, you would never give this to a child, and I'm sure most of you here that are seasoned needle felters know that anyway, because for starters, it would end up really fluffy with too much handling because of all those fibres that get loose and things like that. But he's looking beautiful. So this is actually a gift for my nephew, and I'm going to make him into a mobile. So just to finish him off, I'm going to add a lovely little bow tie to him as well. And my nephew, his name is Freddie. So obviously this is going to be Mr. Freddie Fox. So I'm going to move Freddie Fox out of the way and bring in my brush mat. And here I've got some beautifully soft, so soft, olive green merino wool bats that we're going to make his bow tie from. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to split this like so. And I'm just going to have it the length of my brush mat. This is a small brush mat, so I believe it's 6 inches in length. So you want it to be the length of your brush mat. And I'm just going to felt this down twice, lift it up, and then I'm just going to felt it twice on the other side. Lift it up, flip it back over, and then I'm just going to bring these ends in here. So we're creating a straight side, and then same, lift it off, and then I'm just going to bring those sides in. I want to keep lifting so we don't end up with too many other fibres attached. And I'm just going to flip it over, felt down on the other side to make sure that's all nicely secured into place. Next, we want to work out how big we want our bow tie to be. So I'm just going to fold over these rough ends here, felt those down into our strip that we're making. And then this piece now measures 4 inches exactly. So I'm going to bring my felting mat back in, and I'm going to place this on here, and I'm going to bring those two ends right into the middle, okay? And then I'm just going to felt down with my fine needles the ends that we've just folded down into the middle. Like that. And I'm just going to pull it off, bring it back round, and then just felt down the other side as well. Okay, like so. And then I'm just going to also felt a touch just in these areas here where the ends meet the middle, just to tack them all into place. There we go. So you've got something that looks like that. The next thing I'm going to do is bring my brush mat back in again, and we're going to make another strip. So I've got my wool again, the length of the brush mat, lift it, felt, lift it. I'm just going to fold over those ends again, and then the same on the other side. Okay, then I'm going to bring back my felting mat with the beginnings of my bow tie. I'm going to take the strip we've just made, and I'm going to place it down the middle all the way around the back. Then, once I've got these two ends meeting here in the middle, I'm just going to trim them. We don't need all that length. And then I'm just going to take my fine needles again, and I'm just going to felt those loose ends into the back of the little bow shape we made a moment ago. Like that, okay? And then what we want to do is we want to shape it a bit more. So I'm just going to take my needles, and I'm just going to push and create a bit more division between the kind of the central piece that we've added and our bow shape that we've already got in place. And I'm just going to really focus on getting these ends a bit more tucked down to create more of that bow tie shape that we're looking for. So I'm just going to felt around the kind of outer edge of this central piece that we've added on both sides. And there we go, there's our bow tie. So the next thing to do is add it to our fox. So I'm going to take my fox, I'm going to place the bow tie in the middle of his neck. I'm going to take my fine needles and I'm going to felt into that middle section that we've added. And I'm felting down the sides of where the bow tie and the middle section meet, if that makes sense. So these areas here, I'm going to felt those into his neck. And then I'm just going to also just felt around the other two ends as well. And if you find one end slightly bigger than the other, like I have here, just give it a bit of a felt down there, and it just makes it look a bit more even. Just going to push that up there. And there we go. Our fox is finished. How cool does he look? So he is going to be hanging from my nephew's bedroom at some point. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I really enjoyed showing you how to make this fox. I hope you found it easy to follow. Again, please share this with other people that are starting out needle felting, because I really want to spread the word with needle felting and get it out to as many people as possible. But let's face it, there's not many other forms of craft where you can stab things legally, so it is incredibly cathartic. So I really hope you enjoyed this. Thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, because it really helps me to make more videos in the future, and I will see you tomorrow with more needle felting hints and tips. Take care, bye.